What's up, Kit Kats? I'm Kat, and welcome back to my channel. And welcome to my first video of 2025. So, Dead Boy Detectives has recently taken over my life, and I've decided to make it everybody else's problem. No, seriously, this show is so good. And Netflix is so ridiculous for canceling it after only one season. Obviously, since this show is my life now, I want to share it with all you wonderful people. Since the goal is that you will all go and watch this show, this video is not going to be heavy on spoilers. I try my best to not give too much away, but obviously, if you want to go in knowing absolutely nothing, go watch the show and then come back after. Without further ado, let's get right on into the video. Before I get into talking about the show itself, I think that it's important to address some misinformation regarding the show's connection to Neil Gaiman. This might come as a shocker, but Dead Boy Detectives is not Neil Gaiman's show. It's Steve Yockey and Beth Schwartz's show. And this is not me trying to pull a Miku Hatsune wrote Harry Potter, it's just simply facts. Gaiman has even stated as such himself on several occasions. Unfortunately, with the show's ties to Sandman, people just assumed. And I cannot totally fault people for this because Netflix did use his name for marketing. It's just aggravating because claiming Dead Boy Detectives as Gaiman's show is sort of like giving full credit to the guy in the group project that barely contributed. Gaiman is credited as being an executive producer. Now, executive producer can either mean that you contributed a lot or barely anything at all. And by Gaiman's own admission, he was barely involved in this show. He wrote 3 scenes, 2 of which involve Sandman characters. And these scenes have a runtime of about a little over 10 minutes. Considering that the show runs for around 8 hours, that is not a whole lot. Even the Writers Guild of America does not credit him as contributing to the script. Gaiman has even gone on record to claim that 98% of his job was basically to encourage everybody else. In other words, he was a glorified cheerleader. Some might point out, well, the show is based on his characters. While it is true that Gaiman, alongside artist Matt Wagner, created the characters Edwin and Charles Rowland, it should also be noted that Gaiman is not the only one to write these characters. The boys were first introduced in 1991 by Gaiman in issue number 25 of The Sandman, and would later be brought back for the Children's Crusade, a DC crossover comic which would run from 1993 to 1994. This is the comic that they would get their Dead Boy Detectives title. And it would also be the last time that Gaiman was involved with these characters, at least until the few scenes that he wrote in the TV show. Ed Brubaker, Jill Thompson, Toby Litt, and most recently, Pornsak Pichetshote are writers who would continue the legacy of these characters. The 2013 through 2014 12-issue comic book run by Toby Litt and artist Mark Buckingham is actually the iteration that inspired Steve Yockey to seek out the rights to Dead Boy Detectives to make a show. This is the comic that would introduce characters like Crystal Palace and Tragic Mick, both of who feature heavily in the TV show. There is a lot of speculation that the reason that Dead Boy Detectives was canceled is due to the recent allegations against Gaiman. And while this might be true for some other projects connected to him, there isn't really any solid evidence that this is the reason that Dead Boy Detectives was canceled. Netflix has a tendency to send shows to the afterlife if they feel that the views are not high enough. Basically, if you're not making Stranger Things or Wednesday numbers, you just can't outrun death. There's also plenty of articles that cite low viewership as the reason for Dead Boy Detectives to be canceled, and people that worked on the show have also supported this claim. I feel like it's also important to state that Neil Gaiman does not own the rights to the IP or its characters. Dead Boy Detectives is entirely owned by Warner Brothers, with Steve Yockey having a deal with Warner Brothers that started in 2022. I think that it's possible to acknowledge Gaiman's contributions while also acknowledging that he has been accused of things for which he should not be supported. And just in case it isn't clear, I do not support Neil Gaiman. In the grand scheme of things, Gaiman created two Ghost Boys over 30 years ago, and these characters have since grown beyond him and found lives of their own. Obviously, everyone will have their own opinion, but I, as well as many other Dead Boy Detectives fans, see this IP as disconnected from Gaiman. For a deeper dive onto this topic, I'll be linking down below the post on the Save Dead Boy Detectives website. For those of you who are uninformed about the allegations against Gaiman, I will also be posting some links to information about that down below as well. But it is some pretty disturbing stuff, so please put you and your mental health first.
Allow me to welcome you to the Dead Boy Detective Agency. We help ghosts resolve their mysteries.
Dead Boy Detectives is exactly what it sounds like. Charles and Edwin are ghosts, they're boys, and they're detectives. Every episode of Dead Boy Detectives is its own standalone case, but there is, of course, an overarching story. For season 1, Edwin and Charles, played by George Rextrew and Jaden Reverie, joined by teen psychic Crystal Palace, played by Cassius Nelson, head to the city of Port Townsend to solve a mystery involving a missing Girl Scout. After an encounter with a shape-shifting trickster known as the Cat King, played by Lucas Gage, they end up, through the wonders of Fae logic, having to stick around in town for a while. While in Port Townsend, one of their cases involving attention-seeking sprites leads them to befriending Nico Sasaki, played by Yu Yu Kitamura, who ends up becoming the heart of their group. The main conflict of the season comes in the form of Esther the Witch, who is out for revenge against the Dead Boys, and then of course, a stuffy, paper-pushing agent of the Afterlife's Lost and Found department known as the Night Nurse, who is determined to force Edwin and Charles to move on.
I am the Night Nurse on duty. I run the Afterlife's Lost and Found department, placing errant dead children where they're meant to be, and you two are errant.
Creator Steve Yockey has referred to Dead Boy Detectives as being the Hardy Boys on acid, and honestly, I could not agree more. Dead Boy Detectives is campy, it's fun, unapologetically queer, and it pulled me in instantly and truly reminded me of shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Supernatural. Which, fun fact, but Steve Yockey actually worked on Supernatural for a few seasons. And Richard Speight Jr., who plays Gabriel in Supernatural, directed episode 7 of Dead Boy Detectives, which is honestly probably the best episode in the entire show. If you were on Tumblr during the fan-made Super Hulock crossover, this show was made for you. Dead Boy Detectives is also just a truly gorgeous show to look at, and you can really tell that a lot of thought and heart was put into every single scene. I love how this show uses practical effects when it is possible to do so. Obviously, there were times where CGI had to be used, but I like that they didn't overdo it. I have seen some reviewers claim that the CGI in Dead Boy Detectives is bad and that you can tell that they didn't have the budget for good visual effects. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like even some of the cheesier visual effects fit the vibe of the show. Dead Boy Detectives is swimming in camp, so moments with cheesy CGI just makes the show more charming in my opinion. That being being said, I still feel like overall the visuals are very well thought out and creative. One of my favorite things is the use of slow-mo in some of the scenes. For example, Edwin's mirror jump in episode 1. So cool. There's honestly so much about this show that I could honestly spend hours gushing. I want to go ahead and talk about my favorite thing about Dead Boy Detectives, and that is its characters. Dead Boy Detectives is a true ensemble cast where even the villains become lovable in their own way.
Marty! Jesus! I'm trying to threaten some kids.
Steve Yockey, Beth Schwartz, and the entire team honestly did such an amazing job creating so many interesting characters, because a lot of these characters don't appear in the comics. Fan favorites like Esther the Witch and the Cat King are specific only to the show, which honestly makes the show truly stand on its own as its own iteration of this IP. Now, while I would love to do a breakdown of every single character in this show, I'm instead just gonna focus on 5. The core 4, and of course, Ginny the Butcher. Now, I would love to talk about Edwin and Charles first because reasons. They're my faves. I mean, honestly. But we're gonna save the best for last.
You guys hang out somewhere else? This isn't the Peach Pit.
What's the Peach Pit?
Crystal and Nico help form the core 4, but Ginny, played by Brianna Cuoco, is important as well. Ginny honestly ends up being kind of an unwilling older sister to the teens. She gives them advice, she's protective of them when it counts, and she also provides some really hilarious comic relief.
Jesus! I thought you were like a meat robber, or like a meat pervert, or what are you doing?
She's honestly just the best, and super pretty, and marry me? Moving on to Crystal. She's a psychic with a demon problem. A lot of Crystal's arc in season 1 involves dealing with the demon that had previously possessed her, and also regaining her lost memories and finding out who she is. When Crystal first joins into Edwin and Charles's dynamic, it seems like she might cause a rift. And she kind of does at first because Edwin is not down with her joining the group.
Charles, you cannot keep up. We do not want to repeat of the infamous puppy debacle of 94, do we?
But not only do her powers make detective work easier, Crystal is essential in Edwin and Charles's character growth. And not only as individuals, but with each other. She's honestly the catalyst that I feel gets them to open up more with each other. And of course, Edwin and Charles in turn affect Crystal's character growth. As you learn more about Crystal, you find out that she is not a perfect person, but Edwin and Charles, as well as Nico and Ginny, help push her to become a person that she can be proud of. Crystal is also just incredibly powerful and totally badass. Overall, just a really great female character. Nico is my sweet baby angel, and honestly, my favorite, right next to Edwin and Charles. On the surface, she's a quirky, anime and cartoon-loving girl with a impeccable fashion sense who just loves love.
Check it out. Isn't it romantic? We're in love.
But obviously, there is more to her. Nico starts off the series as a shut-in dealing with a very colorful sprite problem. But as she becomes friends with Crystal and Edwin and Charles, she starts to open up more. Nico has a lot of fear surrounding death because she's still very affected by the death of her father. But having friends and joining them on cases and I guess feeling like she's part of something really helps her. And honestly, she helps everyone in the group as well, especially Edwin. Nico and Edwin honestly have one of the most adorable friendships in the series. Nico may not have existed in the comics, but Yu Kitamura and Steve Yockey created this character from the ground up. And I cannot see this group without her.
He's the brains, I'm the brawn. Getting things done.
Edwin and Charles obviously come as a package deal. If these two were cats in a shelter, they would be considered a bonded pair that had to be adopted together. Charles would be an orange cat and Edwin would be a black cat. Do with that information what you will. These two have been best friends for over 30 years, and they are determined to spend eternity together.
You ever think, what if death did catch us? She forced us to go to the afterlife and split up. I will make sure that never happens.
By this point, these two practically share a brain, and they are so in sync, and as a viewer, it is just so much fun to watch. Edwin and Charles also kind of have an odd couple dynamic going on, but they balance each other so well, where Charles is smiley and charming.
Yeah. Fine.
Edwin is posh, a little uptight, and a petty queen.
Those girls are staring at me.
Perhaps it's your outfit.
Note, I say this with all the love in the world. Edwin is what fans love about him.
Oh, you love this, don't you?
Edwin has a lot of guards up, which, considering the fact that he spent over 70 years in hell, that makes total sense. But as the show goes on, we get to see a softer side to him. Of course, despite knowing each other probably better than anyone else, Edwin and Charles still have so much that they have not opened up to each other about. Charles has a lot of trauma in his past relating to his home life and his relationship with his dad.
I depend on... It's who I want to be. A good guy. All I feel lately is angry.
Edwin, on the other hand, is from the Edwardian era and is incredibly repressed. As the series goes on, he comes to a lot of realizations about himself regarding his sexuality. So yeah, these two still have a lot of room to grow in their relationship and in themselves and learning to communicate their emotions more. And of course, it's absolutely a delight to see them grow throughout the season. Also, yes, I can guarantee that most of you who are subscribed to my channel that are watching this are going to ship these two. I mean, you've got two boys fighting to spend their eternity together, have been together for decades, practically married at this point, and then they look at each other and it's just soulmates. At least in my opinion. I would honestly be very, very surprised if this show finally continues and Edwin and Charles are not in game. The characters in this show truly make the show for me. Obviously, the world and the visuals and just everything about this show is just so good, but the characters. And honestly, I truly do not believe that this show would be anywhere nearly as good with any other cast. This ensemble just has such an amazing dynamic. And seeing the core four characters come together and form this sort of found family, which Jenny gets dragged into, is honestly just such a delight. I want more of this little family. Netflix may have fumbled the ball and canceled Dead Boy Detectives, but that doesn't mean the fight is over. To start, Dead Boy Detectives wasn't unpopular. It's gotten rave reviews, and it stayed in the top 10 for its first 3 weeks on Netflix. That's not too shabby for a show that didn't receive good promotion. Why Dead Boy Detectives wasn't an October release, I will honestly never understand. This show also has a very loud and dedicated fan base. Ever since the cancellation announcement back in August, fans have rallied together to save the show with the campaign Save Dead Boy Detectives. The petition on change.org currently sits at just a little over 24,000 signatures. To further make their voices heard, fans put their money together using GoFundMe and purchased a billboard calling for the show's renewal. The campaign amount was achieved in less than 2 weeks, and the billboard would go up on October 14th, 2024 on Vine Street in Hollywood, just 5 minutes from the Netflix headquarters. When the billboard completed its run, the Save Dead Boy Detectives campaign decided to take things to a new level, aiming to set a record for longest running fan billboard of all time. This round of fundraising would reach its goal in 72 hours, and the second run of the billboard would begin on December 13th, 2024. These billboard campaigns would be met with warm reception from the cast and crew, and just recently, a third run of the billboard went live. The outcry has of course been noticed, as many news sites have reported on fans' efforts to save the show. The fandom as a whole is incredibly active, sending letters to Netflix as well as other streaming services, calling them out on social media, and just continuing to talk about the show and keep it trending in hopes that Netflix will either change their minds or another streaming service will save it. I've seen some claims that Dead Boy Detectives can't exist without a connection to the Sandman, because obviously if Dead Boy Detectives were to move to another streaming service, it could no longer be connected. This is simply not true, as Dead Boy Detectives was only acquired by Netflix in the final weeks of filming. It was originally set to be on HBO Max and was going to be a Doom Patrol spinoff, and would thus have no connections to the Sandman. As it is, the Sandman characters that do cameo in the show don't play that big of a role in the plot, so it would be very, very easy for this show to move to another streaming service and continue on without that connection. Death, of course, does play a role, but aside from a scene in episode 1, she's spoken about and not shown. It's pretty clear that this is how they had planned to continue on if the show had not gone to Netflix. While Charles and Edwin may have gotten their start in a Sandman comic, and while Dead Boy Detectives may exist within the Sandman universe, even in the comics, their story very much stands on its own. Disconnecting it from the Sandman isn't something that's gonna hurt it. Dead Boy Detectives, the show, already has so many new and interesting characters. I fully believe that this crew could come up with characters that are just as interesting as Sandman cameos. Some may also try to argue that continuing to campaign for renewal is pointless and fans should just give up. But shows have been renewed after cancellation in the past. It may not be the norm, but it has happened. Dead Boy Detectives fans have been fighting since August. And while there is no renewal announcement yet, as long as fans don't give up and just continue to fight, the possibility is still there. These sort of campaigns take time. It's a marathon, not a race. Steve Yockey, Beth Schwartz, and their team honestly caught lightning in a bottle with Dead Boy Detectives. And the cast and crew have all praised the production for just being a wonderful and collaborative environment. Not only that, but Dead Boy Detectives is just so incredibly diverse. And that's something that is so important, especially considering the state of the world right now. Dead Boy Detectives still has so much more to give. The characters have room to grow and develop, there's more backstory to dive into, and more cases to be solved. Netflix may think that Dead Boy Detectives failed to find its audience, but this fandom is dedicated and strong and still waiting for the agency to return. Alright, so that is my Dead Boy Detectives video, and I hope that you all enjoyed it, and if you haven't watched Dead Boy Detectives, I hope that you will go check this show out. I have honestly just fallen in love with this show, and I think that the cast and crew are all so wonderful and so talented. There was clearly so much dedication and heart and creativity pushed into this show. I just think that they all deserve so much praise for what they have done. I love this show. And I love this fandom. Can I just gush about this fandom for a second? I know I already kind of did, but this fandom is just so welcoming and so nice. And I have not felt that since coming into the Soriku side of the Kingdom Hearts fandom. So honestly, Sorikus and Dead Boy Detectives fans, best people in the world. Honestly, best fandoms in the world. I have plans to continue talking about Dead Boy Detectives on this channel, so I hope you will look forward to that. Also, let me take a minute to shout out the shop where I got this cute sweater. It is from Literary Lizzie on Etsy. The most adorable Dead Boy Detectives merch you will ever see. You can get it in blue. It also comes in kind of like a maroon color, so you can be a Charles or you can be an Edwin. I think it also comes in some other colors like black. You can rep the Dead Boy Detectives agency. But yeah, cute sweater from Literary Lizzie on Etsy. If you love Dead Boy Detectives, you should go get one. If you liked this video, please give it a like. And if you are not subscribed, but you would like to be, you can hit that subscribe button. And of course, don't forget to ring the bell to be notified every single time I make a video. My social media links will be linked down below if you would like to follow me elsewhere. With that, this video is over, so I will catch you later. Bye, meow!